Hey, this is Troy Erickson from copywriting.org. And I want to say last year, John Caprani introduced me to somebody that is a pro at e-com email marketing. And for the longest time, we should have had a conversation, but today's finally that day. And I'm glad it is because this person grew up reading Sigmund Freud and was like just very, very smart. And he's really turned that into an email marketing agency that's done really well, worked with over 500 clients. And even on just Black Friday, made $3 million just from email marketing. So he's really good at making money for clients, especially in the e-com niche. And today we're going to be talking about deal structuring, which is something that's really important, really for anybody who is touching email so they can understand what the heck they're getting into and the expectations on the freelancers or agencies end, as well as the client's end. So I'd like to welcome Pete Devkota.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, we should have connected a while back, but finally glad to be talking face to face.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm glad that we're just because what we're gonna do today is literally just talk about deal structuring, and then we're gonna put it out on the internet so other people can learn from it. So, tell us a little bit about, obviously, like you get really good results for your clients. Tell us a bit about how you structure those deals and make sure that you're also happy with what you're getting in return for helping your clients so much.
So I think very early on when I started, I read this article, and in it was kind of something really struck out to me, and it said, if you're a betting man, you want to make sure that you bet on a horse that has the highest probability of winning, right? So whenever I do things, I try to follow that as a guideline. So what I mean by that is when you as a marketer, as an email marketer, the results you generate, right, depends on you, but that's only a small percentage of the formula, right? The real thing is who do you work with, right? Are they a business that is already running smoothly, already has some everything from a business point of view, laid out and structured out. For those type of businesses, if you go in and if you add your systems, you can make a few changes and you can absolutely uncover a ton of revenue for them, right? Why? Because they got everything else structured out properly, and the stuff that you bring in is a cherry on top, right? So if you're a marketer, if you're a freelancer, if you have an agency and you kind of just start working with everyone, then your results are going to be semi best. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to be good. It's going to be bad. There's going to be a lot of what ifs. But if you truly filter out, okay, are these the clients that I can actually serve? Do they have everything kind of dialed in? Do they have a decent list? Do they have good average order values? What's the website conversion rate like? What is the customer journey like, right? Like what is the customer service like from an e-commerce standpoint? Then you can kind of gauge, okay, so everything is pretty much dialed in for this business. However, they're weak on retention marketing, right? They haven't done enough to communicate and build relationships with their clients through emails. So then we can come in, we can plug and play our systems, we can use kind of the formulas and systems that we've created. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool, here's an extra 20, 30% purely from email and SMS, right? So the way to do that best is through setup fees or testing periods where you work with a client for maybe a month or 15 days or 2 months, 45 days, whatever you feel is enough time for you to get to understand the business, B, you to kind of know and gauge how the working relationship is going to be like between you and the business owner, and C, if you truly are the best fit. Because you might be the best in the world, but there's going to be companies where you're going to be a perfect fit. There's going to be companies where you're not going to be a perfect fit, right? So you're limited in time. You might as well just try and find companies that you guys are the perfect match for, and just try to do the best. That's how I've mostly done things.
Yeah, and I think the biggest point that a lot of people forget about was the first thing that you said, making sure that you're working with good clients. And that's something it's really interesting to me because it's like, when freelancers first start out, a lot of times you do have to work with other people who are more beginner in their business. You're a beginner in email or SMS or whatever it is, and they're a beginner in whatever they're selling. And sometimes it's tough because it's like they have a lot more questions. There's a lot more things they don't know. They don't have a really smooth, free-flowing business that's good at everything else. And sometimes you have to help them at the beginning. It's just how it is. And you typically can't charge as much either. But that's why I always tell freelancers why personal branding is so important, getting yourself out there and posting in groups and talking about what's worked for you, what's worked for your clients, what's that one thing that's on your mind today that you really want to share, and you'll start attracting the right people. Because the truth is, as a freelancer, especially, you only need like 3 to 5 clients, especially if they're on retainer with like email list management, for example. And you're making pretty good money, right? So you only need 3 to 5. And
That's it.
yeah, it's like what I've found is a lot of these issues where you run into having a lot of like low to average lead quality, that happens when you start to scale. And I really don't think that any talented freelancer should have to deal with that.
Yeah, I think what most people forget when they get into business themselves is businesses have a very, very low probability of success in general, right? A lot of businesses don't ever hit the 7-figure mark. A lot of businesses completely die out within 5 years or more, right? So when you look at that number and you go, well, if I am working, my input is exactly the same. The stuff that I'm doing is exactly the same. However, if I just be a little bit selective and try to work with clients that I can serve the best at my capacity where I am, then it's going to be a win-win for everyone involved because I'll be doing the best job that I can. The client's going to respect me for the value and experience that I bring to the table. Plus, I'll have enough resources at disposal to give them the best opportunity, give them the best from me, right, and from my team, which enables them to make a lot more revenue, and it's just a really good continuity, right? And that's something that people kind of fail to realize because this a lot of the times they start freelancing or they start looking at online opportunities because they've burnt bridges. They've either lost a job, they've just left it too late. It's not a conscious decision to start a business. It's more of a forced decision. And when that's a forced decision, they don't have money saved up. They don't have the right framework. They don't have the right mindset. And they're just learning as well. So it's just really, really initially difficult in the initial phases. But if you stick it out there, if you just keep on working towards becoming great, learning from great people, taking on the courses and always having that mindset that I want to be better every single time. I want to invest in myself and making yourself the best, the number one investment choice, then obviously you're going to just hang in there, start getting results, and you're going to go places.
Yeah, and to take a page from the Russell Brunson playbook, it's like you're only 3 to 5 clients away from making a good amount of money. And that's true. And a lot of my
Literally.
students have done that. It's like you have to, really educate yourself in something like the email list management certification program or similar. And once you do that, it's like there's really 2 ways to get that high quality clients. Like A, get results for other people, and actually 3. B, have some sort of referral program or really thinking about and incentivizing people to refer to you. And Brian Spernella, one time he mentioned like sometimes, hey, you can put that in a contract or a written agreement of some form where if you get somebody certain results, they have to connect you with a couple of people. And then third, if you don't have any results yet, like I said, you have to educate yourself, but being able to post things that you're practicing, things that you're working on, interesting thoughts you have that are related to email or certain niches that you want to get into. And the last thing about client quality, you can also get a client who's too high of quality, because what
Yes.
I will tell you is that a lot of times when I come on like podcasts and videos and things, I have my little bio that I have people read. And there's a lot of big names in there, right? Like just to name a few, like I've worked on projects with Joel Marion, I've worked on projects with Perry Belcher, Zipify, which Ezra Firestone owns, and like Traffic and Funnels, and more names that are under NDA and things like that. And those specific people I mentioned are great, but sometimes there's big people I work with where there's like red line contracts involved and they pick apart everything. And they're also good at email. So everything I do, their email person second guesses and they have an ego about it. And it just comes to the point where it's like, it gets in the way of me doing my job. And I would rather work with somebody who's like the rest of their business is figured out and they're bad at email, rather than somebody who's like policing everything and playing helicopter parent to everything that I'm doing. And I did not realize this until I was at the 100 million mastermind. I was sitting in a room with like Nick Daniel and Cole Gordon and gosh, a couple other smart people. And they were just, they just brought to my attention, like, why don't you just focus on getting monthly retainer clients who are really bad at email and you'll be really happy. And I was like, never
Well,
thought of that. I was just going after the technical people. But anyway, that's the last thing on the type of mindset of client that you should probably look for.
yeah, like again, having looked at so many people, one thing that I've realized is it doesn't really matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter who you're selling to, but as long as the business owner or your client has got this growth mindset and A, they're willing to learn, B, they're willing to let you do your thing, you're going to have a good job, right? You're going to have a really nice experience. But when they don't have that growth mindset, regardless of how successful they are, they don't have that growth mindset and they don't let you do your thing. I've had people that have hired me and then they're like, okay, cool. Can you do it in this way? Can you do it in this way? Like they're just micromanaging. And then it ends up like the whole process ends up becoming exactly the same as it was before they hired you. I'm like, well, why did you go out and hire an expert if you're literally doing the same thing, right? Like there's no change to it. You could have just as well saved yourself some money. So you have to if there's one thing that people take away from this call, the results that you get is I'd say almost 90% determined by the type of client that you worked with. So your selection criteria should be the thing that you spend the most amount of time on, right? Don't worry if you don't have the ideal type of clients that you work with, right? Keep on working and keep on saying no until the right door opens, the right opportunity opens, because once that right opportunity opens, you're going to do the best, damn job that you can. You're going to get the greatest results that you possibly can. And you're going to start stacking up case studies. Otherwise, you're just going to be just doing the work, getting frustrated. Okay, hang on, why am I not getting results? And it's not because you're not a great writer, or it's not because you don't know your stuff. It's because you and the client were just not a great fit at that particular moment in time.
Yeah, and to be clear, if somebody's listening to this and they're like totally new, like sometimes you have to take on one or two clients that may not be the perfect fit, but like you got to get practice and you got to put food on the table. But after that, yeah, 100%. Like when you hear other people talking about the millions of dollars they've generated, that's not just their skill or luck. It's literally they're attracting a good quality client, which is it's not like I'm not bashing people because I do the same thing, right? I talk about like, hey, we generated over $50 million as an increase, whether deliverability or copy for our clients. But obviously we have some big clients that have, played a sizable chunk in that.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's all about like the whole point is, there's a quote that's the war is won before the first battle is fought, and something like that. And it just goes
100%.
to show that like the preparation and who you select, it really matters a lot as well. But yeah. Now to talk a little bit about the more nitty gritty that people thought we were going to dive into when this started, is like the actual like percentages that you charge or like how you set it up. And you kind of talked about this a little bit, but I'll kind of say what I've experimented with over the years. First, I think when I first started, I was charging, I didn't know what to charge because I didn't have confidence, but it was like 1,500, 2K a month, whatever. And then it became a solid 3 because one day I made up my mind. Then I was increasing my prices and I never looked back. And a lot of people should do that. And then eventually it jumped to 4 and 5. And then other people were like, hey, you should do a rev share. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could add that on too, because I don't want to just do rev share, because typically that's somebody who's looking for a freebie. Not all the time. Believe me,
Most of the time.
there's people that do that well. I just like cash flow. I really like seeing it come in. I like clients that have skin in the game. Sure, there's some other people that love rev share. That's great. But just telling you what I like. So I was like, okay, why don't we pitch it at 10%? Or we can lower it if they say no. But bare minimum, I think every list manager or like freelancer should get a 1% rev share, because nobody's going to say no to that. And a business owner that doesn't want to give up 1% to motivate the person that's working for them, like, what are you doing? But anyway, to go back to what you're saying at the beginning too, if a client really doesn't want to do that, then they can pay a setup fee, because like you talked about, there's a lot of work done at the beginning. And sometimes clients, after a few months, they don't value that. But if you have a setup fee, then they're like, oh, wow, like you did a lot there. And we do a lot when it comes to deliverability and setting up automations and all this stuff. So I feel perfectly okay having a setup fee if there's no percentage after. So I know that you do some mix as well. I'll let you talk a little more about it.
Yep. So basically in the e-commerce space, what I generally like to do is I try to make a no-brainer offer, and it depends on, like, where they're at, right? So for example, two simple categories. If they're making less than 50K a month, I offer them a one-time setup fee of between 2 to 3K, where we go in, we build up the automations, and they don't need many automations at that point, right? We just take out 3 to 4 core flows, like your welcome or your opt-in, your abandoned cart, browser abandonment, stuff like that. Then if they're at a higher revenue per month, then you just obviously need more conversion points, more touch points. So you add on more flows, more emails, right? But that's what I would start at, at least 2 to 3K as a setup fee, with the guarantee that I'm going to deliver at least 8 to 10x return on investment over 90 to 120 days, as long as traffic is coming to the store, right? And nothing changes. So that's the lead offer that I lead with, which I feel is strong. But again, the one irritating thing about email marketing is no one really appreciates it, right? Like it's not sexy. It's not something that people want to run after, right? It's an afterthought. It's a very valuable afterthought, but people normally don't think about it. And it's it's frustrating where people are happy to pay 80, 100, 150, $200,000 per month in ad spend, but when it comes to allocating 5%, 10% of that, rerouting it to another marketing channel so you can get 10 times to 20 times more profitability out of existing assets, they're like, let me have a think, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. But one thing that you can, because it's like every technical negative thing can be turned positive. And the way I think about it is it's just another qualifier, right? Like if somebody really doesn't value email and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend money on this. Well, then, okay, I don't want to work with that person. If they literally don't want to use a channel that's almost pure profit minus your cost of goods, and like there's no advertising expense. Like if you don't want to do that, like it's probably not going to be a good fit.
True.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about deal structure before we wrap up? I have a lot of opinions that I just really put out there and things that we've tested and like my experiences. I've never really put these out on the internet before, so I'm excited about this.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is a lot of the times it's always good to lead with a test offer. And most of the times people are like, whenever they get on a call, they start thinking, how can I pitch the maximum amount of money to this client, and how can I get them on a 6-month or 12-month contract or 3-month contract, whatever it is, right? For me, I feel that that's probably not the right step to take, because again, you don't know whether it's going to be a good working relationship between you two, right? So the worst thing that can happen is you sign on a client on a 6-month contract or a 12-month contract at 5K a month. The 2 months in, you're like, okay, cool, we need to break up, right? Like, we don't like working with each other, right? Keep it clean. At least have a testing period where you actually work with the client, right? At a rate that is okay for most people to lose. Make sure that you deliver great return on investment, regardless of how long it takes. And then identify if you do want to continue the relationship, and if it is actually a value add to the business, because it might not be a value add to the business, right? What you think versus what reality is are two different things. And people, you have to also understand that the clients that you're going after, are business people. They have their own struggles, they have their own issues, they have their own problems going on in their lives, right? And if you can just come in and try to resolve those problems and try to be an asset instead of a liability, and try to be a problem solver instead of a problem giver, you're going to have a really good time working with such people, and you're going to end up making a lot of money as well, both for your clients as well as for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. I've never really charged for a multi-month deal unless a client specifically asked for it so they could save a few bucks. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But I don't know. I've always done month to month because I'm just confident in our services. And it's like most people are staying more than 1 month, and looking at the data, when they stay more than 1 month, they're going to stay for 3, 4, 5 months minimum. And then something, a lot of time it's out of your control. Sometimes you just like dry up the leads and you extract so much money from them, and if they're not running ads, then it kind of, the relationship falls off. But sometimes they get weird. We were talking about off camera that I had a client that I made over 125K extra for per month after 60 days. So it's 2 months in, start making an extra $125,000 per month, and then they canceled after 2 months and went back to what they were doing, and there was no explanation. And sometimes that happens. So it seems stupid on the surface, but it's like there's so many things going on. Think about like your life, right? Like your personal life, there's crazy shit that happens. And guess what? Same thing for other people. So that's the last thing. It's like human nature, right? Like it happens. But anyway, Pete, thanks for sharing all that, because this is a conversation that needs to be on the internet. So now I'm happy that it is. But if somebody wants to reach out to you, how should they do so?
Just add me on Facebook, send me a message, or send me an email to hello@emailoptimize.com. And Facebook is easiest though.
Yeah, 100%. That's the other thing. Facebook is like not sexy anymore because there's not like followers and videos and all this stuff, but it's still my favorite social media because it's just very personal. So, all right. So that is Pete Devkota if you want to connect on Facebook. So thank you, Pete, for coming on, and thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you in the next interview. And if you want to end up on copywriting.org, just go to copywriting.org, click the orange button, and check it out. There's a free interview of typed format that's waiting for you, so you might as well use it. So see you next time.